For a decade, my life as a 75-year-old widow was defined by being the family's indispensable holiday orchestrator. But a dismissive text finally shattered that comfortable illusion. Little did my grown children know, their perfectly planned festive season was about to be spectacularly derailed, not by chaos, but by their own quiet, awakening mother. The small apartment was my sanctuary, every corner a testament to a life lived. Photos of my late husband, Frank, with his impossibly wide grin, sat on the mantelpiece, surrounded by a constellation of smiling children and grandchildren. At 75, a retired public transit ticket inspector, my life was supposed to be about quiet joys. But October always arrived with a specific chill, one that had less to do with the weather and more to do with the calendar. It was the beginning of the season. For the 10 years since Frank passed, I had become the family's holiday anchor. It wasn't a title I'd asked for, but one that had been silently assigned. Soon the calls and texts would begin, my 2 children, my daughter Brenda and my son Kevin, commencing their annual coordination of my time. It was a well-oiled machine. Thanksgiving was at Brenda's because her house was bigger. Christmas was at Kevin's because his fireplace had the most festive atmosphere. These weren't invitations. They were entries on an unwritten schedule, my schedule. My role, unspoken but rigidly defined, was to be the head chef and primary babysitter. The turkey, the stuffing, the 7-layer salad, the pumpkin and apple pies, all fell to me. The grandchildren, bless their chaotic hearts, would be mine to wrangle so their parents could finally relax and have a break. As I dusted the frame of Frank's photo, the memory of last Christmas washed over me. I could still feel the phantom ache in my lower back from standing for 2 days straight, basting the turkey, mashing potatoes, and washing an endless mountain of dishes. From the kitchen, I'd hear the muffled sounds of holiday movies and bursts of laughter from the living room, a party I was facilitating, but not truly a part of. I cherished my family, I truly did. But a quiet, creeping loneliness had begun to settle in my bones, the kind you feel when you realize you've become a tool, a useful object, rather than a person to be cherished. I was the sturdy, reliable scaffolding that held up their perfect holiday memories, and I was beginning to rust. The final straw arrived not with a dramatic confrontation, but with a series of blue and gray bubbles on my phone screen. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and a new group chat titled Holiday Planning blinked into existence. Brenda was the first to message. Brenda: "Okay, team, let's get the holidays sorted. Kevin, we'll do Thanksgiving at our place again. Plan to arrive Wednesday evening. Mom, I'll send you the shopping list. If you can get the groceries on Tuesday, you can come over Wednesday to start prepping." I stared at the words, my thumb hovering over the screen. Before I could even process the complete lack of a question, Kevin's reply popped up. "Kevin, sounds good. Christmas at our place then. Brenda, you guys come on the 23rd. Mom, you'll be on point for Christmas Eve dinner and Christmas Day brunch. That way Stacy can focus on the decorations." On point. The phrase, so casual and corporate, felt like a small, sharp jab. I wasn't being asked to contribute. I was being assigned a task. My heart sank, but it was Brenda's next message that truly shattered the fragile illusion I had been clinging to for a decade. Brenda, perfect. That's settled then. Mom, you handle the food and the rest of us are golden, so much less stress this way. You handle the food. The words seemed to lift off the screen and hang in the air, cold and sterile. I wasn't mom. I wasn't grandma. I was a catering service, the solution to their holiday stress. In that single, thoughtless sentence, 10 years of self, deception asterisk they need me, I'm helping, this is what family does asterisk, crumbled into dust. There was no, would you mind, Mom? No, are you feeling up to it this year? Just the cold, hard logistics of my function. A profound, chilling clarity washed over me. I saw my role in their lives with a brutal honesty I had long avoided. I was the reliable, no-cost appliance that hummed to life every November and December, ensuring their traditions ran smoothly. My own desires, my energy levels, my simple wish to perhaps sit by the fire and watch a movie with them were irrelevant. They weren't bad people, they were just comfortable. Comfortable in the knowledge that I would always be there, pot roast in hand, ready to serve. I didn't reply. I pressed the button on the side of my phone, silencing the screen and the voices that had just told me exactly who I was to them. My silence was a heavy blanket I pulled over myself for 3 days. The unanswered question marks in the group chat felt like little digital monuments to my newfound defiance. During that time, I didn't just ignore my phone. I embarked on an archaeological dig of my own life. I pulled out old photo albums, tracing the younger, happier faces of Brenda and Kevin. I found a box of letters Frank had written me when he was stationed overseas. His words painting a picture of a woman he saw as his partner, his equal, his adventure. Where had that woman gone? I realized with a slow, dawning horror that I had allowed her to fade, burying her under layers of casseroles, babysitting schedules, and a desperate need to be needed. My apartment, once a sanctuary, now felt like the scene of a quiet, slow-motion crime. I had to get out. The community center was my escape, a neutral territory where I was simply Noreen, not mom or grandma. The air inside hummed with a life entirely separate from my own family drama. The sharp clack of mahjong tiles, the low murmur of conversations over lukewarm coffee, the smell of disinfectant and old books. I found a worn armchair in the lobby and just sat, breathing it all in. That's when I noticed her. A young woman, probably a university student, was glued to her phone, a wide, uninhibited grin on her face. Her joy was a beacon. I must have been staring because she looked up and smiled. "Sorry, am I being loud?" "No, dear," I said, my voice feeling rusty. "You just look like you're having the time of your life." "Oh, it's just TikTok," she said, and introduced herself as Jasmine. She tilted her screen towards me. It wasn't just silly dances. She showed me a video of a woman in her 80s learning to skateboard, her face a mixture of terror and pure exhilaration. "Isn't she amazing?" Jasmine asked. Amazing wasn't the word. It was revolutionary. As Jasmine went back to her scrolling, my eyes wandered to the community bulletin board, and there it was. Tacked between a flyer for a lost cat and a yoga schedule was a glossy advertisement that seemed to pulse with light. A majestic cruise ship, dwarfing the icy blue glaciers behind it. "Discover the Alaskan wilderness," the headline read. "Your adventure awaits." It was the trip. The one Frank and I had meticulously planned, right down to the excursions we'd take. The promise of one day that death had stolen from us. A fierce, protective feeling rose in my chest, a feeling for that younger Noreen, the one who dreamed of adventure. I went home with a purpose I hadn't felt in years. I pulled the old, dented biscuit tin from the top of my closet. The faint, sweet smell of shortbread still clung to the metal. Inside lay the Frank and Noreen Adventure Fund, a bundle of worn bills I'd kept adding to, more out of habit than hope. It was just over $5,000. It was their dream. Now it had to be mine. My fingers trembled as I sat at my old desktop computer, the machine whirring to life. I found the 7-day Thanksgiving cruise. The price was steep, but the cost of another holiday spent as an unpaid caterer felt infinitely higher. My cursor hovered over the confirm booking button. It felt like standing on the edge of a cliff. I took a deep breath, thought of the skateboarding grandmother, and clicked. The confirmation page loaded. It was real. A wave of exhilarating terror washed over me. My first call was to Jasmine. "I have a strange favor to ask," I began, my voice steadier than I expected. "Can you teach me how to make a TikTok video?" A quiet, audacious plan was taking shape, built not on anger, but on the radical act of choosing myself. The nagging messages continued for another day, their tone shifting from confusion to a clipped impatience that grated on my nerves. Finally, after one particularly demanding text from Brenda asking for my pie recipes ASAP, I knew the time had come. I sat at my small kitchen table, took a deep, steadying breath, and opened the group chat. My fingers moved across the keyboard with a newfound certainty. "Dear Brenda and Kevin," I typed, "thank you for thinking of me for the holidays. Unfortunately, I will be unavailable to attend any family gatherings from Thanksgiving week through the new year, as I have prior arrangements. I wish you all the best with your planning." I read it over once. It was polite. It was final. It was perfect. I hit send. Before the inevitable storm of replies could begin, I swiped down and tapped the little airplane icon. The cellular and Wi-Fi bars vanished. A profound, blissful silence descended upon my digital world. A couple of hours later, Jasmine arrived, a ring light and a tripod tucked under her arm. "Ready to become a star, Noreen?" she joked. I felt a flutter of nerves, but it was quickly replaced by a sense of purpose. We set up in my living room, the photo of Frank on the mantelpiece seeming to smile his approval. I held up the printed cruise confirmation, the paper crisp and real in my hands. Jasmine positioned the camera. "Just look at the lens and think about how you'll feel on that ship," she coached gently. I thought about the glaciers, the open sea, the freedom. A genuine smile spread across my face, not the tired, accommodating one I wore for family photos, but a real one, born of quiet rebellion and joyful anticipation. We chose a classic Ella Fitzgerald song as the background music, its smooth, timeless melody a perfect fit. Then, we crafted the caption. "After making the family turkey for 10 years, I decided this year's Thanksgiving dinner will be for me, on a cruise to Alaska." We added the hashtags Jasmine suggested. Holiday Grandma, #self-care, boundaries. She tapped the post button. It was out there. After she left, I shut down the computer, walked into my bedroom, and pulled my largest suitcase from the closet. The sound of its wheels rolling across the hardwood floor was the sound of my new life beginning. The digital explosion happened while I was blissfully disconnected, somewhere on an Amtrak train, winding its way through the misty, evergreen landscapes of the Pacific Northwest. The rhythmic clatter of the wheels on the track was a soothing mantra, a world away from the demands of my family. When I finally checked into my pre-cruise hotel in Seattle and connected to the lobby's Wi-Fi, my phone didn't just buzz. It convulsed in my hand, shuddering to life as if from an electric shock. It vibrated for nearly a full minute, a frantic, desperate spasm as a tidal wave of notifications flooded in. My family group chat was a digital war zone. I scrolled back to the beginning. The initial polite confusion had rapidly metastasized into something ugly. "Brenda. What arrangements? What are you talking about? Brenda, Mom, I'm calling you. Pick up. This isn't funny." Then, the discovery. A message from Brenda, dripping with a new kind of horror. "Brenda, my coworker just sent me a TikTok video. A video of you. What in God's name have you done?" From there, the dam of civility broke. The voicemails were even worse. Brenda's voice was shrill with indignation, not concern. "I am mortified, Mom. Do you have any idea how this makes us look? You've put our private family business online for strangers to judge. People at my work are seeing this. You've made us look like monsters." Kevin's approach was a masterclass in emotional blackmail. "Stacy is in tears." His voice wavered with practiced sadness. "You know how much Christmas means to her. And the kids, little Maya was so excited to bake cookies with Grandma. How are we supposed to explain this? You're being incredibly selfish." For a fleeting moment, the old Noreen surfaced. The instinct to call, to apologize, to smooth everything over, tugged at me. But then I looked out my hotel window at the sparkling lights of the Seattle waterfront. I contrasted the genuine peace I felt in this anonymous room with the manufactured chaos in their messages. Their heartbreak wasn't about my absence, it was about their inconvenience. Their mortification wasn't about me, it was about their image. The words, which once would have shattered me, now felt like hollow threats. I took a sip of the complimentary hotel coffee and archived the entire chat. Then, I opened TikTok. The numbers were staggering. The video had gone viral. It had hundreds of thousands of views, and the comment section was a waterfall of support that washed over me, cleansing the residue of my children's anger. "You go, Queen. Get that glacier view. I'm a 45-year-old man, and I just showed this to my mom. She cried and then booked a trip to the beach. Thank you. Boundaries are the ultimate form of self-respect. So proud of you, a complete stranger. As a daughter, I would be thrilled if my mom did this. It would mean she taught me well enough that I could handle my own damn turkey." Tears pricked my eyes, but they were tears of profound validation. I wasn't a villain. I was a hero to people I'd never met. Aboard the ship, the feeling was magnified 100-fold. I stood on my private balcony, wrapped in a plush robe, a glass of champagne in hand, and watched the majestic, icy blue walls of a glacier drift by. The air was so clean it felt like a tonic for my soul. I posted a selfie with an iceberg grinning behind me. I posted a video of my Thanksgiving dinner, a perfectly cooked filet mignon, truffle potatoes, and asparagus, at a table for one, overlooking a sea of impossible blue. The internet dubbed me the Holiday Awakening Grandma. I saw the headline on an online news aggregator and laughed out loud. It sounded like a superhero, and in a way, I suppose I was. I had rescued myself. With every mile the ship sailed further north, I felt the weight of 10 holiday seasons melting away, like ice under a summer sun. My return to the quiet street where I'd lived for 40 years was the polar opposite of my departure. The cruise ship had docked, the train had brought me home, and now, as my taxi pulled up to the curb, I saw them. Brenda's minivan and Kevin's SUV were parked like sentinels outside my small house. They were waiting on the porch, their postures rigid with resentment. This wasn't a welcome home party. It was an ambush. They followed me inside, their very presence seeming to shrink my small, peaceful living room. The air, which had felt so light and clean just moments before, was now thick with unspoken accusations. Brenda was the first to detonate. "How could you?" she began, her voice trembling with a rage that had clearly been simmering for a week. "You humiliated us, the entire family. My boss asked me if everything was okay at home." Kevin's neighbor showed Stacy the video at their block party. "You didn't just go on a trip, Mom. You took a match to our reputation." Kevin, ever the strategist, took a different tack, aiming for my heart. "We were worried sick, Mom. We thought something had happened to you. And then we see you, gallivanting on a cruise ship, making us out to be these horrible, ungrateful children. You've ruined Christmas. You've ruined everything." I listened, truly listened, without interruption. I heard their words, but underneath them, I heard the real message. You have disrupted the system. You have upset the comfortable order. How dare you? When they finally ran out of steam, a tense silence fell. I walked to the kitchen, filled a kettle with water, and set it on the stove. The simple, domestic act seemed to ground me. I returned to the living room and sat in my armchair. The one Frank always used to say was my throne. "I hear that you're embarrassed," I said, my voice calm, and even a tone they hadn't heard from me before. It wasn't angry, but it was unyielding. "And I hear that your holiday plans were disrupted. But what you need to hear is that I did not do this to you. I did this for me." I looked from Brenda's flushed face to Kevin's sullen one. "For 10 years, I have not been a mother or a grandmother during the holidays. I have been an employee, an unpaid, unacknowledged, and frankly, unappreciated chef and nanny. You didn't invite me to your homes. You scheduled my services. The video I posted wasn't an attack. It was a declaration of independence." I leaned forward slightly. "From now on, things will be different. I would love to be a guest in your homes. I would love to see my grandchildren. But my days of being the holiday cruise director are over. My retirement is mine. My time is mine. My life," I finished, letting the words settle in the silent room, "is mine to arrange." They stared at me, dumbfounded. The guilt trips, the emotional manipulation, the righteous anger, none of it had worked. They were facing a stranger. The quiet, accommodating woman they had taken for granted was gone. In her place sat Noreen, the queen of her own life, and they had absolutely no idea what to do with her. Months later, on the cusp of Easter, my apartment smelled of fresh daffodils and lemon zest. The phone rang, and it was Kevin. His voice was different, careful, tentative. "Hey, Mom," he said. "Stacy and I are doing an Easter dinner on Sunday. We were hoping you'd come. No strings attached. Just come and be our guest. Stacy's handling everything." I accepted with genuine warmth. That afternoon, I baked a batch of my lemon shortbread cookies, not because it was expected, but because it was a gift I wanted to give. The scene at Kevin's was one of beautiful, happy chaos. They were managing, albeit with a slightly overcooked ham and lumpy mashed potatoes, but they were doing it themselves. I was seated at the head of the table, treated not like staff, but like an honored guest. My TikTok, with its hundreds of thousands of followers, was no longer about my holiday rebellion. It had become a space for celebrating a vibrant retirement, for sharing tips on container gardening, and celebrating the simple art of setting a boundary. Later that evening, back in my sanctuary, I sat on my balcony with a cup of tea, watching the sky bleed into shades of orange and purple. I had finally found something more precious than the fraught family harmony I had once fought so hard to maintain. I had found my own. Thanks for listening to my story. It's not always easy to change the dance steps in a family, but finding your own rhythm is worth it. I hope that if you're feeling unheard, you find the courage to speak your truth. Take care of yourselves.